The massive space station Harmony Point floated like a shining jewel above a dusty orange planet. Its halls buzzed with life. Humans and aliens from every corner of the galaxy walked side by side, trading goods, sharing stories, and sometimes arguing over who got the last seat at the food court. The station was a marvel, a place where peace held strong despite the differences between species. But peace, as it often does, hung by a thin thread. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead as he crouched over a sparking power unit in the station's lower deck. He was a human mechanic, built sturdy from years of tinkering with machines across space outposts. His dark hair stuck to his face, and his hands moved fast, twisting a wrench with the ease of someone who'd fixed 1,000 things before breakfast. The power unit hummed and groaned, its lights flickering like it was throwing a tantrum. "Come on, you rusty bucket," Jake muttered. "Don't make me look bad in front of the fancy aliens upstairs." He liked Harmony Point. It was chaotic, sure, but it felt alive. Humans weren't the strongest or the smartest species here, but they had a knack for figuring things out, and Jake was proud to be part of that. Nearby, Lyra adjusted a tray of glowing energy crystals in her lab. She was a Venari, a tall, graceful alien with shimmering blue skin and tendrils that glowed faintly at the tips, like tiny lanterns. Her big silver eyes sparkled with curiosity as she studied her work. Lyra loved science, loved how it unraveled the universe's secrets. Her crystals were small, no bigger than marbles, and they powered little gadgets she invented. Today, she was testing them, humming a soft tune from her homeworld. Jake's power unit gave a loud pop, and he cursed under his breath. Something was off. He spotted a small, weird device tucked into the wiring, sleek, silver, and covered in strange symbols. It didn't look human-made. "What's this doing here?" he wondered aloud. No tags, no labels. Probably some alien tech left behind by a sloppy engineer. He poked it with his wrench, then pressed a button that looked harmless. A flash of light shot out, bright enough to make him shield his eyes. The air buzzed, and a low hum filled the room. Jake stumbled back, blinking. "Uh-oh," he said, because every mechanic knows that kind of sound means trouble. In Lyra's lab, her crystals started to shake. She froze, watching as they grew, first to the size of apples, then basketballs, then bigger. They glowed brighter, pulsing with wild energy. "What in the stars?" she gasped, stepping back. Her tendrils flared in alarm as the orbs floated off the table, crackling with power. Her neat little lab turned into a mess of light and noise. Jake heard the commotion and ran over, wrench still in hand. He skidded to a stop at Lyra's door, staring at the floating orbs. "Whoa! Did I do that?" he asked, pointing at the chaos. Lyra spun toward him, her silver eyes wide. "You! Human! What did you touch?" Her voice was sharp, but her flustered tone made it clear she was more shocked than angry. She waved her arms, trying to shoo the orbs back onto the table, but they just bobbed higher. "I was fixing the power unit," Jake said, holding up his hands. "Found this weird thing in there, pressed a button, and then, this happened." He pulled the silver device from his pocket and showed it to her. Lyra snatched it from him, her tendrils glowing brighter with frustration. "This is Venari tech. An amplifier. It's not supposed to be in a power unit, it boosts energy signals. You turned my tiny crystals into these monsters." She gestured at the orbs, which now looked like they could power a spaceship, or blow one up. Jake scratched his head, grinning despite himself. "Oops. Guess I upgraded your little lights into something epic." "Epic?" Lyra sputtered. "They're unstable. If they overload, they could fry this whole deck." She poked at the device, muttering in her language, then looked up at Jake. "Why do humans always poke things they don't understand?" "It's how we learn," Jake said with a shrug. "So, can we fix it?" Lyra sighed, setting the amplifier down. "Maybe. But we need to figure out why it was in your power unit. This isn't normal, it's like someone hid it there. Her eyes narrowed, curiosity replacing her panic. Help me stabilize these orbs first. Then we'll investigate. Jake nodded, rolling up his sleeves. Deal. I broke it, I'll help fix it. He grabbed a spare cable from his toolkit and started rigging a makeshift ground to siphon off some of the orb's energy. Lyra watched, impressed despite herself. Humans weren't fancy, but they were clever in a messy, practical way. Together, they worked fast. Jake looped the cable around one orb, and Lyra used her tendrils to guide its energy into a containment field she'd whipped up. The orb dimmed slightly, but the others kept pulsing, louder now, like a heartbeat. Sweat beaded on Jake's brow as he tightened the connections. This is wild, he said. Your crystals are tough little things. They were perfect until you meddled, Lyra shot back, but there was a hint of a smile in her voice. She liked a challenge, and this human wasn't as useless as he looked. As they wrestled the orbs under control, a shadow moved in the corridor outside. A figure, tall, cloaked, with glowing Venari tendrils, watched them silently. Its eyes narrowed as the orb's pulsing grew unsteady, a faint red glow creeping into their light. The figure slipped away, unnoticed, as Jake and Lyra focused on their task. Almost got it, Jake said, tightening the last knot. The first orb stabilized, hovering calmly now. But the others started to shake harder, their hum turning into a whine. Lyra's tendrils flared again. They're building up too much power, she warned. If we don't stop them soon, they'll explode, and take half the station with them. Jake looked at the amplifier, then at the orbs, then back at Lyra. Guess we're in this together now. Any ideas? Lyra nodded, her mind racing. We need to shut down the amplifier's signal. But we can't do it here, it's too risky. We'll have to move it somewhere safe. The orbs pulsed louder, the red glow spreading. Jake grabbed his toolkit. Lead the way, science lady. Let's save the day. As they rushed out, the station's lights flickered, a sign of bigger trouble brewing. Somewhere deep in Harmony Point, that shadowy figure smiled. The game was just beginning. Harmony Point was a marvel of engineering, a floating city in the void where humans and aliens lived in uneasy harmony. But right now, it felt more like a ticking bomb. The corridors hummed with tension as Jake and Lyra hurried through the lower decks, the strange Venari amplifier clutched in Jake's hands. Behind them, the oversized energy orbs floated, tethered by Lyra's containment field and Jake's makeshift cables. Their glow had shifted from bright white to an angry red, and the air crackled with static. Every step they took echoed with the weight of what might happen if they failed. Jake's boots thudded against the metal floor, his toolkit slung over his shoulder. He glanced at Lyra, who moved with a grace that belied her panic. Her blue skin shimmered under the flickering lights, and her tendrils pulsed faintly as she kept the orbs in check. Where are we headed? He asked, ducking under a low pipe. To the auxiliary power room, Lyra replied, her voice tight. It's got shielding that might contain the amplifier's signal. If we can shut it down there, we can stop these orbs from overloading. She adjusted her grip on the containment device, her silver eyes darting to the orbs. But we need to hurry. They're pulling energy from the station's grid now. Jake nodded, picking up the pace. Explains why the lights keep blinking. These things are like sponges, sucking up power wherever they can get it. He tightened his hold on the amplifier, its sleek surface warm against his palms. So this little toy of yours, why would someone hide it in my power unit? Lyra frowned, her tendrils dimming slightly. That's what bothers me. Amplifiers like this are rare, even among Venari. They're experimental, meant to boost small energy sources for research, not this. She gestured at the orbs, which pulsed louder as if to prove her point. Someone wanted chaos. But why? They turned a corner, nearly colliding with a group of alien workers, feathered beings with sharp beaks, chattering in a language Jake didn't understand. He waved them off with a quick, sorry, and kept moving. The station was starting to feel the strain. Alarms blared faintly in the distance, and the air grew heavy, like a storm was brewing inside. The auxiliary power room loomed ahead, its thick doors sealed tight. Lyra tapped a code into the panel, and the doors slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room buzzed with machinery, towering generators and glowing conduits lined the walls. Jake set the amplifier on a workbench, wiping his hands on his pants. "Okay, science lady. What's the plan?" Lyra knelt beside the device, her tendrils reaching out to scan it. "We need to disrupt its signal. It's amplifying the orb's energy beyond their limits. If we can reverse the flow, we might drain them back to normal." She pulled a tool from her belt, a slender rod that hummed when she activated it, and started prying open the amplifier's casing. Jake watched, then grabbed his own tools. "I'll patch it into the grid here. Maybe we can redirect some of that juice into the station's reserves." He yanked a cable from a nearby console and hooked it up, his hands moving fast. Humans weren't fancy with tech, but they were scrappy, and Jake was the scrappiest of them all. Together, they worked in a frantic rhythm. Lyra's tendrils glowed brighter as she fine-tuned the amplifier, while Jake jury-rigged a bypass to siphon off the excess power. The orbs hovered nearby, their red glow pulsing like a warning. Sweat dripped down Jake's neck as he twisted wires together. "Come on, you greedy little monsters. Give it up already." "It's working!" Lyra exclaimed, her voice rising with hope. One orb flickered, its glow dimming as energy flowed back into the system. The lights overhead steadied for a moment. But then the second orb let out a sharp whine, and a jolt of electricity arced across the room, singeing Jake's sleeve. "Whoa!" he yelped, jumping back. "These things don't quit, do they?" Lyra's tendrils flared in alarm. "The signal's too strong. It's fighting us." She adjusted her tool, her hands trembling slightly. "Jake, we need more power to overload it, force it to shut down." Jake grinned, spotting a backup generator in the corner. "Say no more." He dashed over, flipping switches and rerouting lines with the ease of someone who'd patched a dozen failing systems before. The generator roared to life, feeding a surge into their setup. The amplifier sparked, and the orbs shuddered, their red glow fading to orange. "Yes!" Lyra cheered, her silver eyes shining. "It's stabilizing." But their victory was short-lived. A deep rumble shook the station, rattling the walls. The lights flickered again, then died completely, plunging them into darkness lit only by the orb's eerie glow. Jake cursed, fumbling for his flashlight. "What now?" Lyra's tendrils dimmed as she scanned the room. "The grid's failing. The orbs drained too much before we could stop them. Life support, engines, everything's at risk." Jake shone his light on the amplifier, its surface now cracked from the strain. "So we saved the orbs but broke the station. Great teamwork, huh?" Lyra shot him a look, but her lips twitched with a faint smile. "Not broken yet. We can fix this. You're human, you're good at fixing things, right?" "Damn right," Jake said, rolling his shoulders. "Let's get the main grid back online. Where's the control hub?" "Upper deck," Lyra said, gathering her tools. "But we'll need to move fast. If the station loses power completely, we're all in trouble." They grabbed the amplifier and the still glowing orbs, heading out into the chaos. The corridors were a mess now, aliens shouting, humans running, emergency lights casting long shadows. Jake led the way, his flashlight cutting through the dark. Lyra stayed close, her tendrils guiding the orbs like a shepherd with unruly sheep. Halfway there, a blast rocked the station, throwing them against the wall. Jake caught Lyra before she hit the ground, his arm around her waist. "You okay?" he asked, breathless. She nodded, her tendrils flickering. Yes. But that wasn't the grid. That was an explosion. Someone's doing this on purpose. Jake's jaw tightened. The amplifier in my power unit. The orb's going crazy. You're right, someone's behind this. They pushed forward, determination fueling their steps. At the control hub, they found the main console fried, its screens dark. Jake dropped to his knees, ripping open a panel. I can hotwire it. Buy us some time. Lyra knelt beside him, scanning the amplifier again. Look at this, she said, pointing to a hidden slot. She pried it open, revealing a tiny chip etched with Venari symbols. This isn't standard. It's a override, someone rigged it to amplify beyond its limits. Jake paused, wires in hand. Sabotage? Yes, Lyra whispered, her voice cold. Someone wants Harmony Point to fall. Before they could process it, the orbs pulsed again, their glow shifting back to red. A crackling voice came over the station's comms, all personnel, brace for impact. Power core destabilizing. Jake met Lyra's eyes, his heart pounding. We're not done yet. Let's fight this. She nodded, gripping his shoulder. Together. As they dove back into the repairs, the station groaned around them, a beast on the edge of collapse. Somewhere in the shadows, the saboteur watched, their plan unfolding, and time was running out. Harmony Point trembled like a wounded animal, its corridors filled with the sounds of chaos, alarms blaring, metal creaking, and voices shouting in a dozen languages. The lights were gone, leaving only the faint glow of emergency panels and the menacing red pulse of the oversized energy orbs. Jake and Lyra knelt in the control hub, surrounded by sparking wires and the wreckage of the main console. The air was thick with tension, the weight of the station's fate pressing down on them. Jake's hands moved fast, twisting wires together with a focus that shut out the noise. Sweat dripped from his brow, but his voice was steady. Almost got it. If I can reroute the backup power, we'll get the grid breathing again. His flashlight flickered, casting wild shadows across the room. Lyra hovered beside him, her tendrils glowing faintly as she cradled the Venari amplifier. The tiny override chip she'd found sat in her palm, its symbols glinting like a confession. This sabotage, it's deliberate, she said, her silver eyes narrowing. Whoever did this knew exactly how to push the amplifier past its limits. Jake glanced up, his jaw tight. Yeah, and they're not done. That explosion. They're playing hardball. He sparked two wires together, and a low hum started in the console. The lights overhead flickered weakly, then steadied. There. We've got some juice back. Life support should hold, for now. Lyra exhaled, her tendrils brightening slightly. Good work, human. But the orbs are still a problem. They're draining power faster than we can feed it. She gestured at the floating spheres, their red glow pulsing like a heartbeat. We need to shut them down completely. Jake nodded, wiping his hands on his pants. Then we need help. This is bigger than us. He grabbed his comm unit, a scratched-up device clipped to his belt. This is Jake, Control Hub. Anyone out there? We've got a sabotage situation, energy orbs overloading the grid. Need backup, fast. Static crackled, then a gruff voice cut through. This is Core, Security Chief. I'm on my way. Stay put, human. The line went dead. Jake raised an eyebrow at Lyra. He sounds fun. Core's a Tarak, Lyra explained, standing to adjust the orb's containment field. Big, tough, 4 arms. He doesn't like trouble, or humans, usually. But he's good at his job. Minutes later, the hub's doors slid open, and Core stomped in. He was a mountain of an alien, green scales, 4 muscled arms, and a scowl that could melt steel. His yellow eyes flicked from Jake to Lyra, then to the orbs. "What in the void is this mess?" he growled, crossing two arms while the other two rested on his hips. Jake stood, brushing off his knees. "Long story short. I accidentally juiced up Lyra's crystals with this thing," he pointed at the amplifier, "and now they're sucking the station dry." "Oh, and someone rigged it to happen." Kor's scowl deepened. "Sabotage? On my station?" He stepped closer, peering at the override chip in Lyra's hand. "That's Venari tech. One of your people, scientist." Lyra bristled, her tendrils flaring. "Not necessarily. Anyone with access could have planted it. But yes, it's ours, and dangerous." Kor grunted, then turned to Jake. "You, human. Can you keep the grid running while we hunt this traitor?" "Already on it," Jake said, gesturing to the patched-up console. "But these orbs are the real threat. We need to find the saboteur before they blow us all to bits." Kor cracked his knuckles, all 8 of them. "Then we move. I've got reports of a cloaked figure near the lower decks. Let's start there." He grabbed a stun baton from his belt and headed for the door. "Keep up, or I leave you behind." Jake and Lyra exchanged a look, half amusement, half determination, then followed, dragging the orbs along. The lower decks were a maze of narrow tunnels and flickering shadows, a stark contrast to the polished upper levels. The air smelled of oil and ozone, and every rumble from the station felt like a warning. Kor led the way, his massive frame barely fitting through some passages. Jake kept pace, his flashlight scanning ahead, while Lyra's tendrils guided the orbs. "They're getting worse," she muttered, her voice tight. "The energy's building up again." "Great," Jake said, ducking under a pipe. "Any chance they'll just burn out on their own?" "No," Lyra shot back. "They'll explode first." Kor halted suddenly, raising a hand. "Quiet." His sharp ears twitched, and he pointed down a side tunnel. "Movement. Stay behind me." He crept forward, silent despite his size, and Jake and Lyra followed, hearts pounding. The tunnel opened into a storage bay, cluttered with crates and machinery. In the center stood a figure, tall, cloaked, with glowing Venari tendrils peeking from the hood. The figure froze as Kor's light hit them, then bolted, knocking over a stack of crates. "Stop!" Kor roared, charging after them. Jake and Lyra ran too, the orbs bobbing wildly behind them. The chase twisted through the bay, the cloaked figure weaving between obstacles with eerie speed. Kor swung his baton, missing by inches as the figure ducked and darted toward a maintenance hatch. Jake spotted a shortcut, a narrow gap between machines. "Lyra, with me." He dove through, pulling her along. They emerged just ahead of the figure, cutting off their escape. Kor closed in from behind, trapping them. The figure skidded to a stop, hood falling back to reveal a Venari male, sharp features, dark blue skin, and a sneer. "You're too late," he hissed, his tendrils glowing bright. "Harmony Point falls today." "Who are you?" Lyra demanded, stepping forward. "Why are you doing this?" "Name's Torv," he spat. "And this station's a lie, humans and aliens pretending to be equals. The Venari should rule, not grovel with your kind." He glared at Jake. "You triggered my plan early, human, but it's still enough." Kor lunged, but Torv was faster, tossing a small device that erupted in a blinding flash. Jake shielded his eyes, coughing as smoke filled the air. When it cleared, Torv was gone, the hatch slamming shut behind him. "Slippery bastard," Kor growled, kicking a crate. "He's heading for the core. If he gets there, we're done." Lyra clutched the amplifier, her tendrils dimming with exhaustion. "He's the one who rigged it. He wanted the orbs to overload everything." Jake clenched his fists, anger flaring. "Then we stop him. He's not tearing this place apart, not while I'm here. He turned to Core. You know the core. How do we get there fast? Core nodded, already moving. Service lifts, 2 levels down. But they're offline, human, can you fix them? Watch me, Jake said, cracking a grim smile. They raced to the lifts, Jake prying open a panel and hotwiring the controls in record time. The platform shuddered to life, carrying them deeper into the station. As they descended, the orbs pulsed louder, their red glow bathing the lift in an ominous light. Lyra gripped Jake's arm, her voice low. If Torv reaches the core, he'll use the orb's energy to finish what he started. We can't let him. We won't, Jake promised, meeting her gaze. Humans don't give up, and neither do you. The lift stopped, doors opening to the core, a vast chamber of spinning turbines and glowing conduits. In the distance, Torv stood at a control panel, his tendrils plugged into the system. The orbs surged, breaking free of their tethers and floating toward him. He's amplifying them again. Lyra shouted, her voice drowned by the rising hum. Jake grabbed his wrench, determination burning in his chest. Not if I can help it. But before they could move, the orbs flared, their glow blinding. A shockwave knocked them back, and the station groaned louder than ever. Time was up. The core of Harmony Point thrummed with raw energy, a cavern of spinning turbines and glowing conduits that kept the station alive. But now, it was a battlefield. The oversized energy orbs pulsed wildly, their red glow flooding the chamber as they floated toward Torv. The rogue Venari stood at the central control panel, his tendrils plugged into the system, a wicked grin on his face. Jake, Lyra, and Core sprawled on the floor, knocked back by the shockwave. The station groaned, metal bending under the strain, and the air crackled with danger. Jake scrambled to his feet, wrench in hand, his ears ringing. We're not done yet, he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. He grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her up. Her tendrils flickered weakly, but her silver eyes burned with resolve. Core rose too, his 4 arms flexing as he hefted his stun baton. Torv laughed, a harsh sound that echoed over the turbines. You're too late, human. These orbs will overload the core, and your precious harmony will choke on its own air. Venari will rise from the ashes. His tendrils glowed brighter as he fed more power into the system, the orbs swelling larger, their hum turning into a scream. Lyra clutched the amplifier, her hands trembling but steady. He's using them to reconfigure the atmosphere, make it toxic to everyone but Venari. We have to stop the signal. Jake's mind raced, piecing together a plan. He wasn't a scientist like Lyra or a warrior like Core, but he knew machines, and he knew how to break them when he had to. Core, keep him busy, he yelled, darting toward a side conduit. Lyra, with me. Core charged, a green blur of muscle and fury. He swung his baton, forcing Torv to duck and unplug one tendril to defend himself. Sparks flew as the two clashed, Core's strength against Torv's speed. It wasn't enough to stop him, but it bought time. Jake reached the conduit, ripping off its panel with a grunt. Inside, thick cables pulsed with the station's lifeblood, power flowing to the core. Lyra, can we use the amplifier to reverse this? Turn the orb's energy against him. Lyra knelt beside him, her tendrils scanning the device. Yes. If we boost its signal the other way, we can drain the orbs, maybe even shield the station. She hesitated, her voice dropping. But it's risky. The amplifier's damaged. It might overload us instead. Jake grinned, reckless and determined. Risk's my middle name. Let's do it. He yanked a cable free, sparks biting his fingers, and handed it to Lyra. Hook it up. I'll reroute the grid. They worked in a frantic blur, Lyra plugging the amplifier into the conduit, her tendrils guiding the connection, while Jake twisted wires and flipped switches. The orbs screeched louder, their red glow blinding, but Jake didn't flinch. He'd faced failing engines, busted reactors, and worse. This was just another fix, just bigger. Across the chamber, Core roared as Torv landed a kick, sending the Turok stumbling. Torv plugged back into the panel, his tendrils flaring. Fools! You can't stop progress. The orb surged, energy arcing toward the core's central turbine. Now, Lyra! Jake shouted, slamming the last connection into place. Lyra activated the amplifier, and a pulse of blue light shot out, clashing with the orb's red glow. The chamber shook, metal screeching as the two forces battled. Jake grabbed Lyra, shielding her as sparks rained down. The orbs wavered, their hum faltering. Slowly, their red faded to orange, then yellow, then white. Energy flowed back into the amplifier, then into the grid. Jake's rewiring kicked in, and the conduits flared to life, channeling the power into a shimmering barrier that enveloped the core. The station's groan softened, the turbines stabilizing. Torv's grin vanished. No, he screamed, lunging for the panel. But Core was faster, tackling him to the ground with all four arms. The Venari thrashed, tendrils flailing, but Core pinned him tight. You're done, traitor. The orbs shrank, their glow dimming until they were just crystals again, clattering harmlessly to the floor. The amplifier sparked one last time and went dark, its casing cracked beyond repair. Silence fell, broken only by the steady hum of the core. Jake let out a breath, slumping against the conduit. We did it. Holy stars, we did it. Lyra smiled, exhausted but triumphant. You did it, human. That shield, you turned their power into our salvation. Core hauled Torv to his feet, cuffing his tendrils with a satisfied grunt. Not bad for a soft skin and a scientist. I'll take this scum to the brig. As Core dragged Torv away, the comms crackled to life. All personnel, this is Commander Vex. Power restored. Report status. The voice was stern but relieved. Jake tapped his comm, Jake here, with Lyra. Core's safe. Saboteurs caught. You're welcome. A pause, then, well done. Report to the bridge, both of you. Days later, Harmony Point buzzed with a different energy. The command deck shone with polished steel, packed with humans and aliens in crisp uniforms. Jake stood beside Lyra, feeling out of place in his patched-up jumpsuit. Core loomed nearby, arms crossed, a rare smirk on his face. Commander Vex, a wiry human with gray hair and sharp eyes, stepped forward. For bravery and ingenuity, we honor Jake the mechanic and Lyra of the Venari. You saved this station, and proved what we can do together. Applause erupted, a mix of cheers and alien hoots. Medals gleamed as they were pinned to Jake's chest and Lyra's sash. Lyra leaned close, whispering, you humans are chaos, but I'm glad you're here. Jake chuckled. And I'm glad you're smarter than me. We make a good team. Later, they stood on an observation deck, the orange planet glowing below. Stars stretched endlessly before them, a canvas of possibilities. The station hummed beneath their feet, alive and whole. So, Jake said, hands in his pockets, Torv's locked up, the grid's fixed, and your crystals are back to normal. What's next? Lyra's tendrils glowed softly, her eyes bright with curiosity. There's more out there, mysteries, tech, worlds. I want to explore them. With you, maybe? Jake grinned, the spark of adventure igniting in his chest. Thought you'd never ask. Let's see what else we can accidentally upgrade. They laughed, the sound mingling with the station's hum. Harmony Point had survived, stronger for their bond, a human and a Venari, united by ingenuity and courage. Beyond the glass, the galaxy waited, full of secrets to unravel. And they'd face it together.